Mr. Nutz Hoppin Mad is an Amiga title released in 1994 by Ocean Software. You play as Mr. Nutz, a squirrel that seems to be heavily influenced by Sonic the Hedgehog, judging by the trainer's gloves and the whole attitude look he's got going on. This wasn't unusual though in the early 90s. Sonic and Mario were basically the standard in platform games, and the Amiga never really had a runaway success of a platform game. So this was perhaps one final attempt at bringing a quality mascot-like character to the system. Mr. Nutz first actually appeared on consoles, but Mr. Nutz Hoppin Mad only made it officially onto the Amiga. A Mega Drive version was planned and mostly developed, but it did not quite make a full release. The storyline in the game is not comprehensive, or is there any attempt to introduce any meaningful characters early into the game. You're simply trying to defeat some chickens from outer space who are trying to take over the world, of course. The game plays like a mixture of a Sonic and Mario game, but in reality, whilst it sounds great, it doesn't quite work. With Mr. Nutz being able to run and roll into a ball and also collect any lost power bars when hit by an enemy, all very similar to the Sonic games. In terms of Mario similarities, you've got the overworld map and picking up jewels which are left all over the levels for you to collect instead of coins. Mr. Nutz can also pick up feathers which give him power-ups, again similar to Tanuki Mario, which allow you to glide across the levels and fly up and down whilst you have momentum. The real issue I have with Mr. Nutz Hoppin Mad is the really messy level design and use of colour. I found it really hard to see many of the things in the levels which I should be collecting or bouncing on to reach platforms. In screenshots the game looks really nice, but in motion it's just too messy. It feels like a classic example of the kind of games Ocean published later in their life. Good sound, good visuals, but just something that just feels a bit cobbled together. As has been demonstrated many times on the Amiga, it just didn't have that many good platform games. It seems like this is something exclusively reserved for consoles. That said, consoles have their stinkers too, but whilst Mr. Nutz does look the part, and I did actually get a reasonable amount of enjoyment when it was first released, it has not aged well. Certainly a game where reviewers probably got a bit carried away with the desire to have something which could compete with Sonic and Mario at the time. I really wouldn't worry too much about trying this one out, other than for nostalgic reasons. Not the greatest Amiga game.